might be one of the most feared GX counter flips that you ever see. No damage, no Pokemon moving, just that big slam of the GX marker, and man, it puts fear in players.
Kind of an interesting factor here, though, is the fact that even after an Altered Creation GX, Zacian V is not able to knock out Morpeko VMAX. Morpeko having 300 HP, just massive, massive amounts of hit points. Not something Joey's going to be able to take out easily, so maybe if he can try to target down something like a Dedenne GX on Zach's bench if he has to utilize that, or maybe we'll even see him chase after things like this Dusknoir that would be down, or Octillery. That we might just see him even ignore the Morpeko altogether.
Yeah, I think that's probably the strategy that he has lined up. He's had some time in this field to see the other decks. Maybe he's even played against a similar Morpeko style variant. And he has an idea of how to win these games. After he uses that GX attack, he's going to go ahead and try to target down one of those Dedenne or
even Morpeko before it evolves as well.
Or, anything that's in range that he could target down, and then use that target whistle. Following that, take that 3 prizes to follow up, and he can just clean up the game.
Yeah, it's a spicy inclusion there, target whistle. Love to see that. And that's something we've actually seen pop up a good bit. I believe it was in both players' decks in the last round.
Yeah.
Kind of a niche one-of card that we've seen come in and out of decks over the years, but players really looking to utilize it this weekend.
Yep, knocking out Shamans for 3 prizes is probably good.
As we do see these players set out their prizes, really nothing terrible on either player side. Prizing a Dusknoir could be a little annoying for Zach, but he does play that 2-2-2 line, so he should be able to find another one.
Yeah, we'll see if that has any impact on Zach's opening setup. Both our players are almost ready to go here for us. Everything lined up for a pretty great match.
Yeah, certainly excited to see how this one is going to shape up. 2 brand new decks going at it. Both of these players once again at 5-0-1. And here we go, getting right into things.
Here it is.
And Joey right away is like, let me read this Morpeko, make sure I know exactly what it does. And started an Oranguru over on his side.
Yep, and that is not the Primal Wisdom Oranguru. He's going to go ahead and just have that Instruct ability lined up for himself. So would like to see himself thin down a little bit and then draw up, but I don't know if that's going to be happening. He does have that Zacian, probably going to just get a nice big hand with Intrepid Sword.
Yeah, you got to think. And, oh, that Sudowoodo actually could be a pretty big factor as well. We do see Dedenne come down. Dede Change going to just ditch the whole hand, drawing 6 new cards. This is a great way to see a bunch of cards on your first turn with the new rule change where you're not allowed to play a supporter.
Yeah, even getting those supporters into the discard pile are pretty beneficial. You'll be able to see them off of a VS Seeker in the following turn. So really everything's just kind of going Joey's way to start this off.
There we go, Intrepid Sword. Doesn't find any Metal Energies, but still gets those 3 cards to hand. So Joey's sitting with something like a 8 or 9 card hand after turn 1. Seems pretty good to me.
Yeah, this is where he wants to be. Also has energy following up this turn, and he has some ways to accelerate energies if he chooses to just go aggressive with a Zacian V. If he isn't able to find that Arceus Dialga and Palkia.
We're going to see a Flash Energy come down on to Morpeko V. Of course, it does have a pretty solid first attack in Spark, just doing 20 damage to the active and 20 to the bench. Those type of attacks you really love utilizing in these spread decks where you can set up multiple prize turns, multiple knockouts at once. And that's basically all Zach had, though. Just has to go for the attachment and a Spark.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those awkward turns where you don't know if Zach's holding on to something impressive or he just really doesn't have it, because he's playing a card like Octillery, an evolution line, which is a little slower, but it does provide him that consistency later on in the game.
And here we go, tag call, going to search out 2 tag team cards, finds that Guzma and Hala tag team, and also if he doesn't have the Arceus Dialga Palkia, could find that with this as well. And this is such a good card in these ADP decks, being able to just basically search for the whole combo. You discard 2 cards from your hand, and you can find a Stadium, a Tool, and a Special Energy card. And that's going to get Joey everything he needs. Since he's not getting Arceus Dialga Palkia, got to think he has one in hand, which means Guzma Hala will find him the Float Stone he needs. It'll find him the Double Dragon Energy, and it can even find him the Chaotic Swell, his stadium of choice, which is really key when Zach's going to want to be utilizing something like Thunder Mountain Prism Star.
Yeah, if you can slow down your opponent and really make them have to work for it, maybe they'd have to have that Marshadow in combination with a supporter, but in combination with the Stadium, but that's just so hard to pull off, especially seeing that Zach is off to this pretty slow start.
Trainer's Mail looking at a couple of options here. Looks like Joey's just going to fail it. He saw a choice band there, not something that's going to be helpful against Morpeko VMAX since it does only boost damage to GX and DX Pokemon.
Yeah, he isn't going to get any of those extra effects there. And also the damage still kind of doesn't add up at that point. I think he is just going to be on that route where he just tries to pick off some extra Pokemon on the bench.
Pretty large hand for Joey. He's got a lot of options here. Guzma Hollow, we know, can find him that Altered Creation piece if he wants it. And what I like about this as well is that he's going to be able to discard a Metal Energy, which will interact well with the Metal Saucers he plays.
Yeah, that's going to be a great way for him to accelerate energy onto his Pokemon and not have to worry about if this Arceus Dialga and Palkia were to fall at any point. He just has that extra Pokemon lined up in the Zacian, ready to go. And we don't have to worry about standard effects where this Arceus Dialga Palkia needed to find that energy and maybe an energy switch. No, it's just lined up right there with the Double Dragon energy ready to go.
Yeah, such a big card here in the expanded format. Oh, an interesting card in Joey's list is the Stealthy Hood. I wonder how that interacts with Sinister Hand. I believe if the damage is placed on that Pokemon, it can't be moved onto or off of it, right?
That would, yeah, if it is stuck there, then that Pokemon, you can't interact with it with the ability, I would assume. So we could see that actually be a pretty cool way for Joey to limit some of the damage swapping that Zach has available.
Yeah, it's kind of one of these things where it's like he definitely didn't play Stealthy Hood in his list to count for the Sinister Hand, right? But it just so happens like, oh, that'll work out pretty nicely. And we do see Joey has the full combo. Going to go ahead and Floatstone that Oranguru, move it to the bench. Arceus Dialga and Palkia to the active spot, and Altered Creation coming up next.
Yep, also does have that Metal Saucer in hand right now, as you were talking about that earlier. Could choose to go ahead and play that now. Do like seeing the Chaotic Swell coming down here too.
Yeah, it just really limits a lot of your opponent's options as far as anything with Thunder Mountain. And there it is, Altered Creation. The GX marker has been flipped. For the rest of this game, Joey's Pokemon will be doing 30 more damage. And if damage takes out one of Zach's active Pokemon, Joey will be awarded an extra prize card.
All right, so Zach has his work really lined up for him here. Does have a pretty reasonable hand as far as being able to find his Octillery, but the rest of it's pretty weird. He has his Dowsing Machine, but his only available item for him to use there is that Ultra Ball, and he can't really work that in cleanly.
Right.
And then he does have that research that he could go ahead and discard and draw 7, but he's going to lose his Dowsing Machine in that process. Maybe there's a way that he uses Octillery and fills up to discard again, but it's not the cleanest for him here.
Zach does play Battle Compressor and also has Field Blower in his list, so he could definitely pull off a big turn if he was able to find a large combination of cards with, you know, the Dowsing Machine, finding the Field Blower off of a Compressor, something like that, to get rid of this Chaotic Swell, eventually finding him the Thunder Mountain, and he could lay down some pretty big damage over on Joey's side.
We'll just have to see what really comes out for him here.
Yep, Octillery going to hit the field. You got to think that's going to evolve soon. An Abyssal Hand, really just such a solid ability. Once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 5 in your hand. A really great way to just fill your hand back up, and it really does combine well with a lot of the pieces that Zach has. Even the Duskull, the Duskull that he plays from Cosmic Eclipse has an ability that lets you discard 3 cards from hand. That's a pretty good combination where you can, you know, search your deck for that evolution and then also thin your hand down to draw with Abyssal Hand.
Yeah, we've seen Zach really think of everything in the way that he built this deck, and he put himself in a fairly good position to draw out of weird scenarios like this. We'll see if he can get it one time on stream for himself to put himself in a good position against a pretty well set up established player on the other side.
We do see an Ordinary Rod, one of those new cards from the Sword and Shield base set expansion, letting you choose as you would like to put up to 2 Pokemon and up to 2 energy back into your deck. And he's just going to have to discard that Dowsing Machine with this Professor's Research. You hate to see your A-Spec go to the discard pile with no use, but really didn't have any other options.
Yeah, it looks like he may have drawn into a Pokemon Communication, but it's hard to just really work that in combination with a Dowsing Machine. So who's to say that that was the better or worse play here? He is going to give himself a few options here now to work with.
We do see the Morpeko VMAX hit the field. Joey's got to make sure he knows what it does, and this is really exciting. And we also see the counter energy. Something really interesting with that is it doesn't work on EX or GX Pokemon, but it doesn't say anything about Pokemon V. So if Zach does go down on prizes, that will provide 2 lightning energy for the max discharge.
Yeah, well, the one unfortunate thing for Zach is that Joey doesn't like to play long games. So when he takes a prize and that counter energy finally becomes active,
right,
you've got one turn to really use it because Joey's looking to close out.
And there's that Duskull, going to be able to discard 3 cards from hand and just right away search for the Dusclops, get that evolution in play. Really a really cool card that came out of the Cosmic Eclipse expansion, and I think one of the reasons that we're seeing Dusknoir have a place here again in Expanded.
Yeah, if you see that in combination with Tapu Koko Prism Star, you can start to accelerate some energies along with that as well. Just an easy way to get those into the discard pile. It's such a cool way to drop your hand down for Abyssal Hand too.
Yeah, and we're seeing him use that right now. Abyssal Hand does also find a Quick Ball. We see a Battle Compressor, so we could definitely see the Koko Prism Star come up here with the Quick Ball and Compressor combo. Also going to go ahead and just ditch that Execute. Love getting that guy in the discard pile as quickly as possible due to propagation.
Yep, having access to that so that you don't have to discard all of your best cards when you're using some of these really impressive discarding effects in your deck, like those Ultra Balls. It's just a great way to make sure that you have some options saved for later in the game when you really need those fringe cards.
We see Zach is also playing a Guzma and Hala of his own. Really useful to find those flash energies. Can also get the Thunder Mountain Prism Star, which is, you got to think, is really key to his strategy, to his deck. And then even plays the counter gain in addition to the counter energy as a way to get some additional damage when you're behind.
Yeah, he can just come out of nowhere with a Morpeko VMAX just because he has these incredible counter effects. Just depends if he's going to have enough time to find the use for these.
Quick Ball discarding that Execute that he just discarded with Compressor. Now we'll be able to find any basic Pokemon. It looks like it's just going to be another Duskull. Wants to guarantee himself that he'll have the option potentially to use a Dusknoir next turn, and going to go ahead and use the ability once again. We're going to see a full 2/2 Dusclops in play without even having to wait a turn to evolve.
Yeah, just using those Executes, that propagation to the best of his ability there. Didn't have to discard too much, so we only had to lose that Guzma and Hala. Or it looks like the Mallow and Lana as one of his extra cards that he's included into that tag engine. So just that's going to hit the discard pile for him. But, of course, could see that come back later in the Versus Seeker.
And it looks like we'll just have to see another Spark spreading some more damage. And then we should see a pretty big turn here from Joey.
Yeah, Joey has really put himself in a great spot here. He does have access to multiple attacks just because he has that Metal Saucer. If he wants to get really aggressive, he can take some big knockouts. If he just wants to continue using Arceus Dagapalkia, he can do that as well.
Morpeko, I believe, does only have 190 HP, so if Joey can find his one of Fighting Fury Belt, which we actually do see in his hand right there, he could just attach another energy to this Arceus Dagapalkia and use Ultimate Ray in order to knock it out because of the 30 damage boost and then the 10 more from Fighting Fury Belt.
Yeah, it looks like he has 170 hit points.
Okay.
So already has that lined up for him, fortunately, for Joey.
We do see the choice of Computer Search off of the Trainer's Mail. Computer Search is just always one of the best cards in Expanded. Anytime you're building an Expanded deck, it feels like that's always just the go-to as far as A-specs go, and then you see if something else works in your list.
Right.
But Computer Search is just consistency, and consistency is definitely king in the Pokemon trading card game.
Yeah, Zach decided to go with that Dowsy machine as his option and just wasn't really able to get any use out of it because he saw it too early in the game.
Right. Of course, with Computer Search, you don't have to reveal to your opponent what you take, so Joey takes any one card out of his deck, puts it directly into his hand, which is just what makes it so good, is that it can find any other piece that you might need to set up a specific combo. So you got to think Joey's going to be doing exactly what he wants to on this turn since he's left himself with so many options.
Yep, so if we start to see how this is aligning up, Joey will have access. He can get multiple energies in play just by using Arceus and Dagapalkia, that Ultimate Ray, taking a big knockout and loading up his Zacian. So maybe this last piece is just trying to work in that Target Whistle Guzma combination, something to take those last 3 prize cards and clean the game up. Just depends if he's going to be able to hold on to that, if Zach maybe has some disruption available too.
Joey just going to take a Professor Sycamore here. We see on Zach's side choosing to play Professor's Research. That's definitely a meta in of its own. Which card do you choose to play? We've got Juniper, Research now, and then also Professor Sycamore. And this all giving you that powerful effect of discarding to draw 7.
If you're not playing Juniper, you're not doing it right.
Got to make your deck as expanded as possible, right?
I go late.
Oh, it's actually just going to be the Guzma. Joey choosing to target down the Octillery here. Doesn't give himself the option to win the game in 2 turns, but does target down Zach's kind of consistency engine.
Right, so this does line up for Zach to get some relevant damage with his Morpeko, but maybe just has that read that Zach's hand isn't that strong.
And we do know now that that counter energy has been activated. Only 1 more energy needed in order to start attacking. And we see another Morpeko VMAX and a VS Seeker. Gonna find any supporter card out of the discard pile, and Professor's Research will discard and draw 7. Targeting down that Octillery ended up not hurting Zach too much.
Yep, no high five. These players are just going to keep pushing through, but does see those 7 cards line up for him. Finds the energy to go along with his Morpeko VMAX, so we'll have Max Discharge available for him now. Can get some really relevant damage onto the board and maybe start to make a swing. Joey has to be thinking, did I make the right choice here? Because I kind of want this game to be over soon.
Not quite enough damage for Zach to set up a play where he knocks out this Arceus Dialga Palkia. I believe just 20 damage short with what's on the field right now, doing 180, and then there's 80 damage over on Joey's side. So he can't quite knock out this active, but he can set it up to where he can actually, without even attacking next turn, take a knockout on this Arceus Dialga and Palkia because of the extra damage that'll be in play on Joey's bench.
Yeah, there's really cool plays where maybe you use a card like an N, and then you take the prize card, and so that you have the 6 that go with it, and then you draw a few more with the prizes that you take between turns, then you attack. So
right.
there's some really great ways for you to manipulate that hand size for yourself and hurt your opponent at the same time.
And we do see an N hit the discard, so that's probably something he's considering for the future turn. See an Ultra Ball in hand, maybe could set up another Remoraid here, but also has the option to Sinister Hand some damage around. Do you think there's anywhere that, I mean, he could knock out this Pseudo Voodoo on the bench, but I don't know that that's necessarily the best use of it.
Yeah, I feel like when you're playing a deck like this with the Dusknoir, it's really important to keep as much damage as possible on the board, especially when your opponent probably isn't going to be doing a lot of healing. And then you make your decisions later on in the game. You also saw your opponent use a Guzma, so it's a little more unlikely for them to just have that Guzma ready to go right now and take your Dusknoir off the board. But it is a little bit risky.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we see Zach do, moving 20 damage to the bench so that as much damage stays in play as possible, like you mentioned. And Joey going to play a tag call here. If he finds a Guzma and Hala, he could find that Stealthy Hood and just hard retreat the energy off of this Arceus Dialga and Palkia, and that would mean that that damage is stuck and that Arceus Dialga and Palkia cannot be knocked out right away.
Yeah, you could lock 180 damage from Sinister Hand, which is pretty annoying.
Yeah, not what Zach. I'm sure that Stealthy Hood would be a really annoying card for Zach to see right now. But Joey just finds the 1 Arceus Dialga and Palkia, so maybe he, prize. Oh, he does only play 2 Guzma and Hala, 3 Guzma.
It looks like he's holding it.
There is that Stealthy Hood, comes down, and a Professor Sycamore to draw 7. And that's damage that is going to be stuck on that Arceus Dialga Palkia. Nothing that Zach will be able to abuse moving forward.
All right, so we've already seen the supporter for the turn for Joey, so that means that we're probably not going to see the Dusknoir take any damage. So we will see some damage moving around, but is it going to be anything relevant for Zach's side? You'd have to think that the Stealthy Hood locked out so many options for Zach now, and he's really trying to piece together the last bit of his strategy now.
We will see a ton of damage come into play on the Morpeko VMAX, and Zach does have a healing option in his list. He's got that one of Mallow and Lana. It doesn't necessarily make, I don't know that it's any relevant healing since it would still get knocked out by a follow-up attack from a Zacian V. But that's an option he's got available to himself and could even, at the same time move into his other Morpeko VMAX to start putting some damage down with that guy.
All right, so now from Joey's side, just really starting to thin down a little bit more, get these useless cards out of his hand, doesn't want to see these for later on.
Yeah, he saw Zach grab that in last turn, so he wants to make sure that he's as in-proof as possible.
Well, he did a pretty good job with that Stealthy Hood. That should be able to help him out as far as those awkward random knockouts in the middle of the turn.
Actually goes ahead and chooses 2 Ultimate Ray and power up another Zacian V. So this Arceus Dialga Palkia will go down, but it's going to be some wasted damage effectively for Zach that he's not able to move around anywhere else.
Yep. And now for Zach, they're going to go ahead and figure out that interaction that we've been talking about. Just wants to know, just if I do have this damage available, can I bounce it around? Can I move some to him? How's this going to work out? Because it's pretty important.
Yeah, so Sinister Hand just shouldn't be able to touch the Arceus Dialga Palkia at all. That damage that is on there cannot be touched by Sinister Hand, and if Zach was to move any damage to the Arceus Dialga Palkia, I believe it would just go away because it can't be affected. So, I mean, it is a legal move to choose to move a damage counter from like a Rangaroo to Arceus Dialga Palkia, but I think it would just
it disappears into an abyss.
Yeah, exactly. So Zach's going to want to make sure that that damage on Joey's bench is moved around a little bit more appropriately.
We just see him go for the test run where he just puts 10 over to see what happens.
And you really see Zach is kind of not sure what to do here, thinking about how this Stealthy Hood coming into play is going to affect his game plan. Or maybe we're getting a just confirmation ruling from the judges, making sure that everything is as it should be.
Yep, Joey seems pretty confident in how that interaction works. He really didn't have any questions to go with it, went ahead and played that Stealthy Hood and kept on moving.
Yeah, and this is like the stuff I love about Expanded, where it's like we have this boundaries crossed Dusknoir from 2013 that's interacting with a Stealthy Hood that came out last year sometime. These are cards that were never meant to really interact with one another, so seeing them clash in Expanded means that we've got to find new rulings and that things just need to be cleared up. So just making sure that everything is as it should be.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see just how these interactions do work out. You can see Zach already asking Joey about some of those interactions too. It's funny to see this happen just now for these players. So probably this matchup hasn't occurred just yet for Zach, especially with the Stealthy Hood in the lineup. That's something that you usually see for the standard format, and now seeing it expanded. It just adds to the list of 30 things that can stop you from doing something else in Expanded.
Yeah, exactly. Stealthy Hood, probably in Joey's deck for that Disgusting Pollen Vileplume that we've seen be really popular. Of course, 2 Rowlet and Alolan Exeggutor decks did make top 8 in Dallas, so wanted to make sure that he had an answer for Disgusting Pollen, and that's, you got to think why it's in the list, and just so happens that it works out in this matchup as well.
Yep, he's getting full use out of it here, and it looks like it's going to be pretty impactful.
See Zach just going to look through that discard pile. You might as well take some time here to figure out what your opponent's resources have been, which of his resources have been expended, make note of things moving forward in the game. And, we actually see some of these cards over on Zach's side as well, like Counter Energy, something that was never meant to, really be with was made way before VMAXs were even, thought of, and now giving you that extra energy reach, really solid in a deck like this.
Yeah, this has worked out really well for Zach. He does have that extra push, especially when we saw the Chaotic Swell, no Tapu Koko coming down, so with some of that energy acceleration really wasn't available to him early on. He really did need that knockout to happen and have that counter energy available to start getting this damage, which looks like it's putting him in a spot to start taking some prize cards and really mess with what Joey's going for.
So play has resumed. Zach goes ahead and attaches a Lightning to that benched Morpeko. And we're going to see an Ultra Ball as well, just ditching and execute. And also another Morpeko. Once you've set up 2 VMAXs, you don't really need the other one. And we do see that Tapu Koko Prism Star coming down, Dance of the Ancients. Such a powerful ability, letting you accelerate 2 energy into play. Yeah,
we've seen it in a lot of decks that maybe not even have the Lightning Pokemon to go along with it. And now we see it in a deck that's getting some use out of it with Lightning. And it's going to finally be able to use that Morpeko VMAX, get those energies into play. Maybe Zach can save this active Morpeko from being knocked out on the following turn, which would end the game.
Right, yeah. VMAX is, of course, giving up 3 prize cards. Now, whenever Joey uses Altered Creation, just that extra prize card effect is going to be a big difference. And we do see Zach utilize that in putting Joey just to 4 cards and kind of putting on him, like forcing him to find that Guzma.
Yeah, this is pretty tricky for both players, honestly. Zach isn't going to be able to get the push damage knockout that he was looking for. But he is going to get a lot of damage down to really line up the knockout on the following turn.
All right, so we are getting an update from the head judge. Stealthy Hood prevents any moving of damage from the Pokemon it is attached to. If Stealthy Hood was attached to a Pokemon that did not have the damage, that Pokemon could be targeted to move the damage to, but the damage would be blocked by Stealthy Hood and essentially fizzle out, kind of what we were talking about. And Zach's going to go ahead and utilize that Dance of the Ancients, sends that guy to the Lost Zone. And the third energy put onto Morpeko VMAX, and we'll probably just see the retreat and attack at this point. Maybe some movement of the damage with Sinister Hand.
Yep, Zach has put himself in a spot to get an extra attack off, and it looks like that is the attack he needs to keep him in the game. He's going to be taking a big knockout, so thinking of taking that counter energy out of play, or the counter energy out of the play here, and he's going to go ahead and do that.
Just retreats here into the next Morpeko. All Joey needs to finish the game is a Guzma, though, with 2 Zacians fully powered up on the bench. I don't think there's enough damage to deal with one of those Zacians, let alone both of them. So this is really what it's going to come down to. Off of these 4 cards Joey has been left with, does he find Guzma? Does he find an out to it?
Yeah, we talked about him having that 1 Guzma in the discard pile already. Don't actually see VS Seeker in the list, so he does have those 3 raw copies of Guzma. He's going to need to find one of the remaining 2 to take the game here.
He does play Tapu Lele, but his bench is full, so his real only option here is going to be finding the raw Guzma off of either these 4 cards or a top deck or something like a Trainer's Mail.
All right, Zach is placing the damage, trying to find the optimal way to move all of this.
Yeah, and looks like he's just doing the same thing he did last turn, where he's spreading the damage equally across the board. And this is really, pretty heads up. He's played this deck at least these 6 rounds. You got to think he tested it a lot heading in as well, to where he knows that keeping as much damage in play as possible is what he's going to want to do. Zach will take 3 prize cards here, knocking out that Arceus Dialga Palkia, spreads a ton of damage to the bench. Joey sends up a Rangaroo, which is also another way for him to dig if he drew cards that can thin his hand down. But this is it. Does he find the Guzma? This also frees up a bench spot, so if he has Lele in the deck, something like a Quick Ball would also be an out for him.
It looks like we do see the Quick Ball in hand, so if he has that lined up, we're going to find out right now.
He may have discarded the Lele earlier on in the game. Yeah, I don't see it in the deck. And if he's got, I think I do see a couple Guzmas there, so he's going to thin his hand down as much as he can. We see a couple of elixirs drawn off of the end. Those are cards he can just burn. Even if he doesn't hit them, he doesn't really care at this point. He's got 3 energies on 2 Zacians. He just wants to get those out of his hand so he can draw more with Instruct.
Right, we looked through. We really didn't see many energies in there. I don't even know if there is 1 energy in there to go along with this. So just going to pull these out of his hand right now. Look to find the last maybe 2, 3 cards, depending if he can get that last card played in his hand, and draw into that Guzma. We did eye up at least 1 in the deck, and looks like the deck is about 10 cards.
Pretty thin, and he's going to thin as many cards out of his hand as he can. And Zach kind of knows this is what it comes down to. He's got to find the Guzma here. And if he doesn't, Zach might be able to clean up the game on the next turn with the 1 prize Sudowoodo in play and the Dedenne on the bench.
All right, this is going to be one of the biggest cuts of Zach's day so far. This is huge.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Zach just has the damage lined up in play. He's got 260 damage in play, so if Joey does not find a Guzma here, Zach can just win on the next turn. Did he find it?
I don't see it.
And I think that with 260 damage, all Zach has to do, if there's not another Stealthy Hood or something from Joey, is move 160 to Dedenne and move 100 to Sudowoodo, and that would be his last 3 prizes.
Yeah, he can just move any damage over to one of these the GX or V Pokemon and then just knock out the active if it weren't a Zacian.
Yeah, that as well.
So he's going to have this lined up for himself. It looks like Zach did just enough to get him in a favorable spot here to clean up game 1.
Yeah, saw the lines. He knew that he had to maybe get a little lucky off an in, or Joey had to miss, and went for that play. And yeah, you can see Joey just scoops the game up. It felt like Joey was in real control of that. Zach was able to come back, and man, if in is not the comeback card, I do not know what is.
Yeah, you would have to think that that was going to really put him over the top. But we did see that that interaction with the Stealthy Hood was so important. It really bought Joey that extra time. He didn't get to see that damage push up and then the cards drawn from the end. So it gave him that extra turn. But I really think that the deciding point was when Joey decided to take that Octillery off the board. If Zach didn't have the hand to combat that, the game was just sealed. But Zach had everything he needed to really push.
Yeah, he hit that VS Seeker, meaning he could research to draw a ton, and that made all of the difference. Moving forward into this next game, what adjustments would you want to see from Joey, or do you think he played just about as well as he could have?
I think he has that combination lined up for himself where he doesn't have to leave damage on board and find that awkward extra knockout, attack into a Morpeko VMAX twice. If he goes for that target whistle, plus Guzma play and does 3 prizes, I think maybe that's the faster route, because you're not giving your opponent those 2 turns with a counter energy Pokemon. You just give them that 1 turn, do something. If it's not enough, I'm going to win.
Yeah, you win a turn slower effectively by going the route Joey did in the first game, but you kind of limit your opponent's options much more. So it didn't work out for him in game 1. Maybe we'll see him go for a more fast-paced approach here in the second game.
Yeah, maybe there's also a play lined up where if the Morpeko VMAX is already in play, you get that chip damage down first, then you remove an Octillery or Dusknoir from play, and you have that last one knockout lined up. Just give him that 1 turn with the counter energy. Don't give him extra turns, because you see how the damage piles up. It's pretty wild when Zach can just do whatever he wants with all the damage.
We saw Joey use a lot of Trainer's Mail in his last turn as well. I wonder if maybe there's a reason to like hold on to Trainer's Mail towards the end of the game, to where you can dig that, if you hit that card off of either Instruct or the End, like that's another 4 cards you see that can effectively find you the game.
Yeah, it could find you that target whistle and really just clean up at that point.
You got to think Joey's probably going to be going first here. It's kind of an interesting choice in the expanded format now that you aren't able to play a supporter on the first turn. Typically, these Zacian V decks are ones that haven't minded that too much, especially since you can utilize Intrepid Sword to draw some cards to end your turn.
Yeah, I think that everyone else who has that discussion in their head, well, do I want to evolve? Do I want to do this? Anyone playing Zacian just goes, I like 3 cards. I'll do that.
Yeah, going in second, probably a disadvantage for Zach, since, his main attackers are evolutions, but maybe at the same time, not really, since Spiritborn Evolution lets him search out the Dusclops. He can get closer that way, and then also get some damage in play turn 1 with Spark if he gets to attack turn 1.
Yeah, we did see that as his attack of choice, just really trying to soften up some of the damage so that he could make some big plays, but I don't know if that damage was enough of a relevant factor for him. Maybe he just really needs to focus on getting that Tapu Koko down and getting that 1 big attack off early.
Sure. And also kind of the line Joey went with as far as knocking out Octillery initially, that turned on the counter energies for Zach, and that let him get that, just for 2 energies, start swinging for 180. Maybe if he just hits the Morpeko VMAX, like you were saying, and looks to knock out Octillery following that up, that might be a better line to where he doesn't turn on those counter cards too early.
Yeah, if we saw that in combination with a Chaotic Swell, you'd have to think that that would really hinder what Zach's able to do on that turn. Might not get the energies to get a relevant attack off.
Players are going to be setting out their prize cards here. We see one of those counter energies, a Duskull as well. Joey prizes a couple of energy, which could be problematic with his Max Elixirs, and does prize 1 copy of Arceus Dialga and Palkia, which is not too bad though, since you only need to utilize 1.
Yep, he does have that available to him. Doesn't have to worry about it getting knocked out by anything wild. You usually see Zach taking a few turns to get damage into play, so 1 Arceus Dialga Palkia should be plenty.
Joey right away plays a Trainer's Mail, finds himself a Quick Ball, and we got to think he'll see that that played right away, searching his deck for 1 basic Pokemon to get onto the field. Also has Guzma Hall in hand, so he's got the turn 2 Altered Creation set up.
Yeah, he also has Max Elixir. He has a lot of pretty good cards lined up for him in this opening turn, so Joey should be able to give us a really good game. Just depends on if he decides to go with a similar strategy or if he thinks that something else is going to work for him better.
Also discards a Metal Energy, which is great for Metal Saucers. Gonna activate all of those so that they can be those energies can be brought back from the discard pile and attached to a benched metal Pokemon. Over on Zach's side, he started the Tapu Koko Prism Star, which is really not a place you want to see this card. You can only utilize Dance of the Ancients when it's on the bench, and having it active means that you can't Dance of the Ancients to a Pokemon and then attack with that Pokemon in the same turn.
Yeah, and you really don't see him using many switching effects, just has the 2 Float Stone. Having to play a Float Stone on a Pokemon that you're just going to throw into the Lost Zone is probably not the best idea, but you got to do what you got to do to get through in this point of the game.
Here comes a Max Elixir with 2 energy prized. Can Joey hit? He does right away. Finds a Metal Energy. Pretty good to hit there after prizing 2 and then also discarding an energy. He was definitely limited as far as the energies in his deck, and hasn't really, since he can't play a supporter on this turn, hasn't really thinned his deck too much yet.
Yeah, don't tell Joey the odds, because he's going to hit no matter what. He doesn't care.
You never tell me the odds. And also gets that Double Dragon Energy attached to the bench, and Intrepid Sword drawing 3. Let's see if he hits any Metal Energy from this. Nope, just going to put 3 cards in hand.
Only hits it when it matters.
A couple of quick balls over on Zach's side, so he'll have plenty of options, but I don't see a supporter card. Might be having to go with something like a Dedenne on this turn. Not really a Pokemon he would like to bench, since it just gives up 3 prize cards effectively once Altered Creation happens.
Yeah, we saw Zach decide to not go that route in the first game, and I don't know if that was by choice or by just the way his hand was working. He really doesn't want to put a Pokemon like that into play. He'd rather just go for that Remoraid and find his Octillery the old-fashioned way. A little slower of an approach, but he did have just enough turns to close out in that first game.
Eyes up a Morpeko here. Definitely wants to go ahead and spark as quickly as possible. Get a little bit of damage in play. You know that Joey's next turn is going to consist of him using Altered Creation GX almost certainly, so no risk of this guy getting knocked out right away. And with another quick ball in hand, it also has an Ordinary Rod. That could be a pretty good card for him here to shuffle back some of these pieces he might not want in the discard pile before using Dedenne.
Yep, looks like that is going to be the route that he goes with as he goes ahead and throws away a Pokemon that he does want access to. So can go ahead and use that there. And just the way that this pans out, he will be able to have a Lightning Energy in discard after the Dedenne. So pretty strong turn here for Zach to start him off. Yeah,
this is going to work out great. He can, as long as he finds one of his float stones, he can move this Cocoa Prism to the bench and even go ahead and use Dance of the Ancients to start powering up a second Morpeko. I think you do want to go ahead and get 2 down this turn and try to evolve them as quickly as possible, since the VMAX is way less susceptible to getting knocked out right away. And Dedenne Change will discard that 1 Lightning Energy, 6 cards here, and he's seen a lot of cards and has not even played a supporter yet.
Well, that might continue.
Man, 2 Executes, 2 more Morpeko VMAX of Flash Energy, and an Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball being the only live card in the hand, really. Can't evolve on his first turn. Execute's not very useful when, besides being in the discard pile. So maybe we just see this go get a Remoraid and hope to find an Ultra Ball next turn?
Yeah, I think that's really the best play that he has lined up for himself. As soon as you're using the card now, you have to assume that it's going for Remoraid. He doesn't want, if he was going for like Surprise Factor second to Dedenne or something, maybe we'd see it, but I don't even know if he has another one in his deck.
Yeah, just plays the 1, doesn't even have any Shaman EX either. So yeah, it's just going to be the Remoraid grabbed. And looking to top deck an Ultra Ball or an Octillery next turn. But this is, you know, his best play with the cards he was dealt for sure. And, you know, I kind of like seeing how players navigate these situations, obviously, whenever things don't go according to plan. Finding your way out of that situation is really what separates good players from great players.
Yeah, and Poker Face is really important here too, because this is the same play Zach would make if he had an Octillery in hand. Or, of course, not with the supporter, but if he has the Octillery to follow along with this, Joey has no information as of if you have that or not. So if you can hide that from your opponent, play this with confidence, maybe you see the end come out. But, of course, Joey is going to go pretty aggressive here with that Guzma.
Goes ahead and plays it. Does find the double Dragon Energy. Maybe he goes ahead and throws that down onto the active. Not sure where else he'd really want to attach this turn. Maybe just to the Zacian to get it closer to being ready. But if he goes the same route as he did last game, we'll probably just see 2 attacks with the Arceus Dialga Palkia, using Altered Creation GX this turn, and then using Ultimate Ray on the following.
Yeah, and it might be a lot more effective this game just because Zach has 0 follow-up.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be onto the top deck here for Zach, honestly. I mean, and his deck is relatively, you know, filled with good cards, right? He hasn't played a supporter yet. He's got Ultra Balls still that can find him the Octillery, which would obviously draw him cards. And Joey, wasting no time, goes ahead and puts Zacian on the bench. And Altered Creation GX flips the counter. Let's see what this top deck is. It's Communication.
Wow, what a big hit. Yeah, you mentioned the Ultra Ball, and I was thinking in my head, that would actually be pretty bad. It's a way to draw, but you would lose some really valuable resources. He did have some pretty important Pokemon in his hand, and he's already used his Ordinary Rod, so finding the Communication's the best tool for him right there, able to get him out of this awkward hand and save some resources along the way.
Yeah, it puts that other VMAX back into the deck, and we know there's another one in hand, so he'll get that evolution. He can attach for turn and get the full 5 off of Abyssal Hand here.
Yeah, this is pretty strong for Zach. If he were able to find that Float Stone, we could really see an aggressive push here, especially with the Morpeko VMAX.
Yeah, I don't think he can attack with the VMAX this turn.
It would probably have to be a switch, and I don't think he has that option. So it might be slow, but who knows?
Yeah, and maybe there's a situation where you let a one prizer go down. Maybe not necessarily Coco, but maybe like a Duskull or something like that. Don't want to let your Morpeko take too much damage right away. I don't see, he's got an in, so he's still got some more play with this hand. We also see a compressor in hand. Could utilize that to maybe get one more energy in the discard. I do think that there's only one in there currently, if he wants to get full effect from Dance of the Ancients.
Yep, so can go ahead and get that in there for himself now and maybe just eye down some Pokemon that aren't going to see some relevant play here. Doesn't have to worry about Intrepid Sword or anything going on, so go ahead and toss that Mimikyu.
Yeah, no GX Pokemon on Joey's side with abilities that he wants to shut down, and just gets rid of some utility supporters that now become live outs from VS Seeker. And I think we'll probably see that in hand, and sure enough, there it goes.
So tough spot here for Zach, but it worked out really well as far as the communication. Just it looks like he's still going to be that one piece off. Just having to give the 2 prizes here on the following turn. And then he has his huge Pokemon, but it gives up 4 prize cards in that Morpeko. If he had maybe an extra Pokemon to sneak into the mix here and then start to get counter energies live, it'd feel pretty good. But I feel like you're just going to lose this type of Coco at this point.
Something else here for Zach, he really wants to find 2 Duskull because Joey, if there's only one in play, can target that down to take away the Sinister Hand option moving forward. And he does have an Ultra Ball, and with the 2 executes in discard pile, as well as the Quick Ball, he will be able to pull that off.
Something we also haven't really mentioned is that Joey is playing a lot smaller of a bench this game. And I feel like that might be a part of his strategy as well.
Yeah.
Just not giving those extra 20 damage, stack, 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 and then push. If you're just dealing with 180, you're going to win that fight.
Right, limiting just the damage that can be in play for Sinister Hand to mess around with is going to, be really a key strategy here for Joey. So really, making a good adjustment here, moving into second game, being down a game.
Just depends if he's going to have enough time to really get the 3 match points out of this. You'd have to think at this rate that it's going to probably be a 2-game set.
Yeah, I don't think that with how much time is left in the round, it's likely Joey would be able to win a 3rd game. He would have to win this game very, very quickly, and then it would probably be a bad draws situation on Zach's side. And Propagation, though, will bring 2 executes to hand, discards another card for Spirit-Born Evolution, and we will see a Dusclops come into play.
So Zach is getting the pieces together.
Does have to let this Coco Prism go down, which isn't great, but honestly, it's better than letting the Dusclops go down, I think, because Dusknoir is just such an important part of your strategy.
Yeah, I think this lines up for that play you were talking about earlier in the first game, where maybe you do find that counter energy plus counter gain play. Following this knockout here, you can have an answer if something were to happen. If your Morpeko VMAX takes damage and you need another Pokemon to start swinging, you could get that play, get that big attack off with a Pokemon that's safe, and then you're just dodging a Guzma one more time.
Ultra Ball will get rid of 2 executes. Looking through his deck, I think he did prize his other Duskull this game, so that's not really going to be an option for him. Maybe just wants to go ahead and get the Dusknoir in hand, increase his better top deck outs potentially. And yeah, that's exactly what he'll go for.
Yep, and this really doesn't do anything over on Joey's side. It's just as threatening to know that the Dusclops is there and to know a Dusknoir is in hand as to not know it was there.
Right.
You're going to probably clear the Dusclops at any point either way.
It is just going to have to be a pass. Joey here, I think, aware of the time, looks like he was moving a little more quickly. Does have a computer search in his hand, so that means that really the world is Joey's right now. He has as many options as he wants, and Metal Saucer will go ahead and get some energy acceleration as well, getting that extra attachment in play. And this, at the end of this turn, if he does go for an Ultimate Ray, which we do see, he'll have a total of 5 energies in play on benched Zacians, including the ones on in addition to the ones on the active Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia.
Yep, and he drew 2 more off his prize cards, so he's got a lot of energies to go along with this. I do like the play of having 3 energy on the Pokemon that doesn't have the Float Zone, just in case something wonky does happen.
Yeah, you'll probably want to put the, if that gets Guzma this turn, you'll probably want to put the Stealthy Hood on that. over on Zach's side, we know he's got the Dusknoir. Doesn't do much good until there's damage in play, though. And he does bench the other Morpeko. I guess he already has the Dene in play, so, I mean, Joey can just win the game next turn with a Guzma. Or no, he would not, because the VMAX has not been damaged yet.
Yep, so we'll see 2 more turns, but I do like what you were mentioning about that stealthy hood, because it should be pretty impactful. It does actually have it in hand right now, but we saw him also hold on to computer search, which is a really veteran move for Joey to know that even though this could be really helpful in this turn, I don't need it right now. I'm going to need this later to close out the game.
Yeah, and doesn't, maybe being a little frostbit from last game, right? Doesn't want to get hurt too much off of an in, leaves himself that out. He doesn't need anything right away, but if he draws it off of an into 4, that becomes an out for whatever piece he might need.
That's right. Well, we are going to see Zach going for his classic play there. He has that N off of the VS Seeker now. So Zach is going to get himself 6 cards. Joey now with 4. We'll see if that ended up working out for Joey. He is holding on to some pretty good stuff in deck. Don't know if he's going to have access to it, though.
6 cards for Zach, 4 for Joey. And I wonder if even moving forward, Joey could ignore the Morpeko VMAX, just go for like Guzma knockout, Guzma knockout. You kind of, if you go for that this turn, you kind of limit yourself to that play though, whereas opposed to hitting the Morpeko VMAX, you now give yourself the option to win on the next turn with a Guzma knockout.
Right. It's a play that takes 2 Guzmas instead of 1.
Right.
So although it does usually line up pretty well for you, just the fact that he took that opening knockout on a 2-prizer means that he's probably going to have to go for 4 just to make this a nice clean game.
There we go, 180 damage to the active, 20 to 2 benched Pokemon with max discharge. Joey with 5 cards in hand now. Does see a Sycamore, also a Metal Energy.
Yep, he has the Saucer too, but I don't think that's his problem. he's got all the energy in the world. He needs to find a card like Stealthy Hood, a card like Guzma, so that he can line up to close this game out on the following turn.
Yeah, I think he really wants the Hood here just to limit Zach's options as much as possible. I don't think I see it there in the hand. He could bench a Shaman to try to set up and dig for it, or even the Dedenne in his hand, but that's giving low HP, multiple prize Pokemon for Zach to toy around with as far as the damage placement goes. So
right.
if you do whiff the Stealthy Hood, that could be a really punishing play.
Yeah, we're actually at an interesting number as far as damage that's on board, too. We're at 220, so you don't really have a push knockout lined up just yet. So if you were able to get that Stealthy Hood in play, locking out that damage could be huge.
And if Joey does miss, though, I mean, Zach could actually just move all the damage to one of the Zacians, take 2 prizes there, and then put 180 on something else, potentially. Looks like a Trainer's Mail, seeing 4 off the top. Can take any trainer to put it into his hand, except for another Trainer's Mail. It looks like it will be a Quick Ball.
And this is where we'll see how important it is for Joey to continue pushing forward, or if he knows that I really can't afford you knocking out one of these Pokemon, one of these really susceptible Pokemon, like a Dedenne or something like that. Looks like he's just going to start to thin out his deck there.
Yeah, Cobalion not going to be super impactful at this point. Probably in his deck for things like Turbo Darkrai, or excuse me, Turbo Dark or Shock Lock, things like that. Just a card he's not going to use. He knows at this point, gets it out of the deck, and now can discard it with something like the Dedenne. We might see him bench more Pokemon here, but chooses not to put the Oranguru down on the bench, limiting the amount of Pokemon in play that Zach can mess with as far as damage goes.
All right, so the Dedenne is in play. That means that damage can be pushed around in awkward places. Did he find a Stealthy Hood?
I don't see it. He does have Fighting Fury Belt, which is a piece that can increase the HP of one of these Pokemon, but Zach has not played his Field Blower yet, and we didn't even see it in that first game set. So that could be a card that Joey isn't even aware of in Zach's list, and that could be huge. That also, of course, gets rid of the Stealthy Hood, so that Zach can then reuse that damage.
Well, we'll see if he finds a Pokemon that could get some benefit from it.
Yeah, I don't think there's much play left in this hand. He's got the Fighting Fury Belt, so we'll probably see him utilize that just to give something a little more HP. And this is really just worst-case scenario for Joey here, missing the Stealthy Hood.
Well, looks like Joey thinks he needs the prize cards. He's going to go for the Great Catcher here.
Yeah, brings up that Dedenne GX, and Now he's in the situation where he can win next turn with just a Guzma, but going down to just one card, we know how impactful N has been so far for Zach. And, ooh, Target Whistle comes out, puts that execute on the bench.
Well, he already has the Pokemon in play that he would need to close this game out, so why not disrupt your opponent with that Target Whistle, put one of those execute onto the bench.
Yeah, and Joey also, I think, knows that an N is most likely coming, so he wants to get rid of cards that he doesn't want to draw, like Target Whistle, and honestly, like Energy. So we'll probably see him, any energy he's got in his deck, he's going to put into play right now, and it looks like it is just the one.
Well, that is the case. Joey is going to be down to one prize, so if Zach were to have a card like N on this turn, he could put himself in a really great spot to limit anything Joey could find. Maybe only 2 cards available to him to find the Guzma to clean the game up.
Well, Kyle, I do see an N in Zach's hand already, so I think that is the play we're going to see. Finding something like Field Blower here could be really nice as well in order to decrease the hit points on Arceus Dialga and Palkia, making it so that after you maneuver the damage around a bit, you can make it a much more clean knockout and leave more damage on the bench.
That's right. Well, we'll see how much thinning Zach can go ahead and get away with here. Looks like he's going to use the execute to start this off.
He's got Ultra Ball in hand. Wants to just get rid of any cards that are useless to him at this point. He's got all his Pokemon in play, gets rid of the communication. You know, anything is getting knocked out for a prize on the bench, so it doesn't really matter if he wants to calm for, you know, something else. Just wants to thin the deck out, gets the Morpeko VMAX, goes ahead and evolves the benched Pokemon, and we will almost certainly be seeing the N. He does have that Thunder Mountain in play, which would be a card. Maybe he should just actually go ahead and use it so that he doesn't draw it. I don't know that it really matters at this point.
Yeah.
But leaves himself the option to have it with a Field Blower maybe for a different Morpeko on the next turn.
Yeah, you could go ahead and just remove the stadium. It doesn't. It's not going to matter anymore. Your opponent's already taken 5 prize cards, so you were going to have that counter game lined up for the whole game pretty much at this point. You really are just dodging Guzma.
Yeah, I guess it could matter like if Joey whiffs next turn but still hits this Morpeko VMAX hard on Zach's next turn. If he's not going to win the game, he wants to attack with the Pokemon that's not damaged. So in that instance, you know, he would want it in play for this just so he could go attach plus Thunder Mountain.
Sure.
So that might be what he's thinking of, why he decided to save it. And we see Dowsing Machine. That's something that he can utilize to get any of these trainers that he's already played back.
Well, whatever decision he makes, he's going to have to start making it pretty quick. We are at 53 seconds left in the rest of this game, but he is 1 game up.
Yeah, so it's going to come down to, I mean, if this game does not complete in a best of 3, if time is called in game 2 and the game does not finish naturally, the match is awarded to the player who won the first game. So I think it's either going to come down to, you know, if time is called during this game, Zach will win. If Zach wins this game, obviously Zach wins. But if Joey wins, then we'll go to a tie. And these players aren't necessarily eliminated at that point, moving to 5-0-2. But locking up a day 2 berth right now in this round would be huge.
Yeah, 5-0-4 is a really weird way to make it into cut, but I've seen it all way too often.
It's definitely happened, for sure.
Well, what is the most impactful card that he can find himself here? Almost thought about Mallow and Lana there, too.
Yeah, I don't think, I think that Battle Compressor is going to be the best option here, just thin his deck as much as possible. And it does look like time has been called. So Zach will be at turn 0, and then we will have 3 more turns to close out this game.
Well, that will give Zach 2 opportunities to at least limit Joey. Joey then has 2 opportunities to find this Guzma, really, because it is starting to look pretty dangerous.
I don't think that Zach had the Field Blower. That would be a pretty big card for him here, getting rid of that Fury Belt so that there's less damage in play. Oh, but he hasn't used Abyssal Hand yet. Let's see if he can find it off of this. There's Thunder Mountain. There's Field Blower. That's actually a pretty big grab here, I think. Do you ever think he saves it for the Stealthy Hood, though?
Yeah, this is tough. He would be able to open that up, but honestly, at this point, you're thinking Joey can't have anything left. I'm just gonna dodge the Guzma at this point, and I'll be fine.
Right. So now the math comes in. 80 damage can be moved off of the active, and Max Discharge will still pick up the KO. So we'll see where he wants to place this damage. Probably just spreading it evenly across the 3 Pokemon on the bench, so he's left with 120 damage in play. So spreading 40 on each one.
I want to know if there's even a case for taking the knockout in this point, because you do get the maximum amount of damage in play if you just keep it all there. Like, you could keep that damage and maybe get something else going. The following turn, that 20 damage could be relevant if maybe you push it onto 2 big Pokemon that could take knockouts.
Looks like he is going to opt to leave 100 on the active, wanting to pick up this KO here. I mean, it's really just going to be this one card from Joey. Does he find Guzma or does he not?
Right.
He might be left with 2 more turns, like you mentioned. And you can see Zach is really wanting to make sure. I mean, that's kind of the thing with these decks is, like, just every single damage placement really makes a difference. And you don't want to misstep anywhere. And looks like he has placed 40 across each of those benched Pokemon, spreading the damage out equally. Which does play around any sort of hood plays from Joey. If he put it all on something like the Dedenne, then Joey hits the hood for the Dedenne. That's, you know, way more damage locked up than there should necessarily be.
Yeah, well, also taking the knockout is a pretty great way to play around the hood, too. Because if you just locked up with like 10 hit points left on there and he plays the hood, that'd be pretty bad.
Yeah, that's true as well. And he has already, we did see him play the Field Blower. So taking that knockout ends up being the correct play, I think. And well, Joey with just 2 cards. I didn't get a look at what they are, but if he had Guzma, he would have played it by now. So they've got to be something not great. And this is a situation where I wonder if Joey, just in case, should have put down that Oranguru. Lets him dig a little more. It does become that awkward, like, extra prize.
Yeah.
But is it worth it, though? I feel like it maybe would have been for this situation exactly.
Yeah, maybe your opponent would have moved the damage to try to take that knockout, too, then.
Okay, sure, yeah.
So it is scary. I was wondering, maybe you hold out for the computer search, holding 2 cards, but it looks like he's going to opt for the Stealthy Hood and give himself that one opportunity for the Guzma.
And this is, I mean, that's a good card for him to find in this situation as far as, like, making the game last a little longer. Because otherwise, I think Zach would probably be pretty close to having the damage in play, but it is just going to be actually an Intrepid Sword.
Yeah, I like this. Yeah, this is a good way to give himself a few more cards. Maybe he could find the Guzma. Knows that it doesn't really matter if you attack into this. You give yourself the exact same win condition.
So now on Zach's side, he's still behind on prizes, so the counter gain is still active. And it's, I think, you know, you got to go for an N once again, right?
Yeah, he's already moved that VS Seeker up to the front, knows that that's going to be the best play there. Can't give your opponent all those different cards to find the way to win. If he does have a computer search in that hand or anything that could find him that Guzma, then the game just ends right there. And all this hard work only turns into 1 match point.
We do see the VS Seeker for the N. Sinister Hand going to move some damage to that Dedenne. Now 180 will be exactly enough to pick up the knockout. No wasted damage.
And Joey will just have those 2 cards to play with there. Maybe could find the Oranguru, but it's going to have to be one of those Guzmas off the top.
Yeah, I feel like he's played less Trainer's Mail this game, and like you said, he does still have the Computer Search. Computer Search won't really be working for him since he's only going to have 1 other card in hand.
Right.
But those mails could become live outs, and yeah, it's just going to be the Morpeko hitting for 180, moving 20 onto the Dedenne. Does Joey find the Guzma?
Oh,
2 Guzmas! He only needed 1, but he got exactly what he needed, and that is the most exciting end to a game that I've ever seen that is just going to ultimately be a tie.